But we begin here with our big story. Voters heading to the polls today in Michigan, both Republicans and Democrats casting their ballots in presidential primaries. And in the Republican race, Donald Trump has a large lead in the polls, but Nikki Haley has vowed to stay in that race at least through Super Tuesday, no matter today's results. For Democrats, Joe Biden facing a protest vote. Groups urging voters to write in uncommitted instead of voting for Biden. If 15% of the vote is uncommitted, that position is eligible to get delegates and then would mark the first delegates lost by Biden thus far. So to get a look at the latest on the ground, I want to bring our big story guest here, Democratic Mayor of Michigan's capital city of Lansing, Andy Schor. So Mayor, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. And look, just a little while till the polls close. I know you've had a gorgeous day out there in Lansing. What has the turnout been so far?
Well, it's 72 degrees here in Lansing, Michigan, which is unprecedented. Climate change is real, unfortunately. But the turnout's been good. It's been pretty steady. We're seeing somewhere about 16%, which is honestly normal for an uncompetitive primary. It's actually more than what we saw with President Obama when he ran for re-election. So this is, you've got, as you said, both sides that are uncompetitive. We know the results, and so it's been steady. We actually saw quite a bit of early voting, which we're able to do for the first time, in addition to mail-in voting. So we're seeing steady at the polls, but a majority of the people have already voted.
Well, and when you talk about it not being a big contest here, I'm really curious about this uncommitted vote, right? This is essentially the first election that we're able to see Democrats that are unhappy with President Biden make their voices heard at the ballot box with that uncommitted vote. And as you know, dissatisfaction largely surrounding his handling of the Israel-Hamas war. Is that a large movement that you're seeing there in Lansing?
There's always going to be folks that are unhappy. These are folks that are coming out to vote. And we're the Democratic Party, so we respect everyone's opinion, and I believe that there will be folks that vote uncommitted. There has certainly been an effort here. I believe that the president is listening. He's hearing the Arab American community, and this is their chance to kind of weigh in. But at the end of the day, everyone's coming out to vote in a primary today that again is uncompetitive. And we're really going to start focusing towards November, when you have a competition between two people. You have Donald Trump and you have Joe Biden, and who is the best person to move this country forward. So we're going to get through today and see what the results look like. But reality is we're going to move forward into a presidential election that goes towards November. And we highly expect Michigan to be a competitive state. It always is. And we're proud of being the purple state.
It certainly always is, but when you talk about it being uncompetitive, and if you have too many of these uncommitted votes, that could signify despair, right, for the Biden campaign. So I'm curious, he's hinted at the ceasefire, right, by Monday, which is not a sentiment that is echoed by Benjamin Netanyahu or other leaders as well. Without actionable change from the Biden administration, do you think that these uncommitted voters will switch their vote come November?
They're going to have to make that decision. I mean, I don't know about despair. I think that folks who go to the ballot in November are going to have to look at Donald Trump and what he did when he was president, and Joe Biden, what he's done as president. When you look at thousands of jobs added by Joe Biden as opposed to thousands of jobs lost by Donald Trump. As a mayor, I can tell you Donald Trump committed $1 billion for infrastructure and we got zero. Joe Biden committed $1 trillion in infrastructure, and we got all of it. So I think it'll be a hefty conversation to be discussed. Again, people are going to get their opinions out today, and certainly Joe Biden is someone who listens, and he's listening to the Arab American community. But moving forward to November, there's going to be a very distinct difference between the candidates, and that's going to be for everyone to look at.
Well, let's talk about the Republican side for a moment, if you will. Look, we see Donald Trump with this huge lead in the polls, but Nikki Haley, she is winning a substantial percentage of the vote in these early states. What do you think is motivating these Nikki Haley voters? And then where do you expect those voters to go in the general election? Is that something that you think could help Democrats?
I do. I think there are a lot of folks in Michigan that are traditional Republicans, that they see what Donald Trump has done and all the indictments. They see what he has done with lies. They see what he's done in so many different areas that don't reflect their values. I think that their choices this time, like they were 4 years ago, will be sit it out or vote for Joe Biden. And we had several formerly elected officials who came out and said that they were voting for Joe Biden or were, refused to vote for Donald Trump. I think that'll continue. I think you'll see that in some of the more conservative areas of our state where they just, they don't like the way President Trump has acted, and they'll sit it out or they'll move over to Joe Biden.
All right. Well, as we know, time will tell. Mayor Andy Schor of Lansing, Michigan, thank you very much for your time. I want to bring our big story now to our panel today. So joining us today is our ABC News contributor and Sirius XM radio host, Mike Muse, our former Republican congressman from New York, John Katko, our Democratic strategist and president of Next Gen America, Christina Sinsoon Ramirez, and ABC News political contributor, Asma Khalid. So thank you all so much for being here with us. And Asma, let's start here with you. This is a story, a state, and a voting block that I know you have covered for years. So Asma, what will you be watching between today, especially with this uncommitted vote that doesn't have that mayor very worried, and November?
Well, I think we need to see how many uncommitted votes are actually cast and what the percentage is, because already you're seeing the Biden campaign trying to downplay how many uncommitted votes there might be. They point out, and this is correct, that in some previous election cycles, you've seen about 20,000 votes or so that were cast as uncommitted without an actual deliberate organizational effort. What I will also say, though, Kana, is that I have spoken to people who have sat in meetings with Biden officials, and there is a deep anger and frustration in the Arab American, the Muslim American community that I have not seen in many previous election cycles. And the big question to me is not what happens now, in a primary. These are involved, engaged voters. It's what happens in November with those low propensity voters that Joe Biden needs. They didn't all vote in 2016 for Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden convinced them to vote for him in 2020, and he needs them to show up again in November.
All right, awesome. And Mike, look, we turn to our resident Lansing expert, Mike Muse, if you will. We know that there's a lot of labor unions, right, that have endorsed Joe Biden, but so far the Teamsters union hasn't. And we know Trump is sort of courting that endorsement. How important are these labor union endorsements in Michigan, especially noting, Mike, that Donald Trump does do well with union members in terms of voting?
It's very important, but just for a moment of privilege, from being from Lansing, Michigan, seeing the mayor of Lansing, Michigan on ABC News, I mean, what a historic day for Lansing right now. I looked at him as a proud parent, and I'm younger. But it means a lot, and it's interesting you talk to Mayor Schor about that, because we have so many automotive factories in Lansing, Michigan, that keeps the city running, and so he knows firsthand the importance of the UAW. What's going to be interesting is how do these UAW workers perceive both candidates and their approach to the UAW, where President Biden actually went and walked the picket line, stood with UAW union workers and pledged his support, whereas former President Trump didn't go to a union factory or plant and took a different tact. And so I think when it comes to the UAW workers, they're going to have a clear distinction between the two candidates versus other unions across the country, how they view the workers.
Yeah, and look, Christina, I thought it was a little interesting, right, that the mayor kind of kept saying this really isn't a big contest. Joe Biden's not really up against anybody, but a lot of people would argue, no, he is up against this uncommitted vote.
Yeah, I mean, there is a portion of the electorate that is dissatisfied, but that is what democracy is about. And people use primaries to send messages. And there is a percentage of the population, the Muslim and Arab vote, very, very important for the Biden campaign. And a significant, especially in recent polling, seeing a close to 40% drop in support. So the administration is trying to shore up that support. But you have across the state big Democratic support. We now have the state legislature, the governor's office, all controlled by Democrats. And so I think we're going to continue to see support for the Biden administration, even as these messages and fights play out within the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and John, to you, how do you think Republicans could use this moment to their advantage between now and November and do some messaging that would win over some of these people that are going to vote uncommitted or perhaps didn't show up in the primary at all today?
Yeah, it depends on who the Republicans ultimately settle on. Obviously, it looks like Donald Trump, but with all his legal problems, you don't know if he's going to survive till then or not. We just don't know. But, with respect to Biden, I think he's really taken on water with his own base, and that's a real problem given the fact that the border issue is dragging him down on both sides of the aisle. And they're all fighting for the middle. They're all fighting for the swing vote that decides all these elections. And when you have problems with your base, plus you're fighting for the swing vote and you're struggling with them. That's tough for him, but he can recover. But I think Republicans can exploit that. But it's really how much is he going to bleed off those voters?
Right, and how much time and how much ground can he make up between now and November? Mike, John, Christina, and Asma, our thanks to all of you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.